expanded board of directors of the Historical Society. I'm very proud of him, and if you know Millard Greer, you know how dedicated he is to all that has to do with history in general, and all that has to do with warfare history in particular. And he is very, very interesting and has such a pronounced knowledge on anything that he seems to get his teeth into. He's also my friend, and I present to you Mr. Millard Greer.
Thank you, Tom. Check in the mail. Thanks for coming. After struggling how best to present this program, I thought about one of my favorite teachers, Mrs. Henry King. She said one should always have a strong opening sentence and, if possible, something original. So I thought of something original, and I want to start off tonight that way. Once upon a time, many years ago, there lived in our little town of Cedartown a most remarkable family by the name of Harris. Children of this family would become known not only locally but nationally for their accomplishments in the field of education, medicine, military, and government. So tonight I'd like to take a little bit of your time and reintroduce you to what can indeed be said to be Cedartown's finest. Charles Hooks Harris, the future father of this family, was born 1835 in Alabama. Educated in local schools, then he entered the University of New York's medical school, graduating summa cum laude. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He was awarded also a special diploma for his work as a demonstrator. On his way to New York to attend medical school, he stopped at the little town of Magnolia, North Carolina to visit relatives. There he met a beautiful teenager by the name of Margaret Monk, the future mother of the Harris family, and was immediately smitten by her beauty and charm. Margaret would graduate from a female college at about the same time as Charles completed his medical training. They were married in 1857. Charles set up medical practice in Magnolia, North Carolina, where their first child, James Coffey, was born in 1858. A short time later, they moved to Montgomery, Alabama, with the hope of a more prosperous medical practice and to be near family members. As the Civil War heated up, Charles moved his family to Tuskegee, Alabama, hoping they would be more secure from the war. By this time, their first daughter, Anne, was born. Charles joined the Army. He served as a surgeon with the rank of captain. He was captured at the end of the war, and at war's end, he was released from the POW camp and returned to Tuskegee. Charles, like many others during this trying period of post-war days, soon discovered that the war had destroyed the good life and all that they enjoyed. Now it would be a very trying task just to stay alive. So once again, they moved this time to Kingston, Georgia, where his brother and family were living. After a year of practicing medicine, trying to farm, running fish traps in the Coosa River each morning to provide meat for his family, conditions grew ever worse. At dawn, the day before Christmas in 1866, Charles Harris, now 35 years of age, loaded up his family, relatives, and all possessions with a total of $5 cash, started for the promised land of Cedartown, Georgia. A buggy, a wagon, drawn by 2 mules, loaded with all their possessions. In the buggy was his wife, baby son Charlie, a future general, his widowed sister Sally, and the wagons were 3 other children, son Jimmy, daughter Ann, and his sister's son. They crossed the Etowah River on a ferry at Woolies. One stretch of this trip was 15 miles through virgin pine forest. The weather was cold, and many felled trees knocked down by a recent windstorm made traveling very difficult. 6 miles from Cedartown, both mules, horses, and humans, all exhausted, Charles stopped at a roadside home, asking the owner if they could put them up for the night. But the house was full. They had to turn them down. They continued onward to Cedartown, arriving at midnight. A direct quote by Jimmy Harris. Cedartown, where God had ordained that Charles Hooks Harris and Margaret, his wife, should spend their lives and rear their children, 6 of whom would be born there. Now I want to go briefly and just tell you about each child. Ann Harris, born 1860, died 1935. She married a Judge C.C. James, J-A-N-E-S. Evidently, he was a very prominent citizen. He served in the local law circuits of North Georgia and Georgia politics. Elizabeth Beck Harris, born 1882, died 1960, married a Mr. John Quinn of Sandersville, Georgia. He was either a lawyer or a teacher, I'm not sure. Della Harris married Mr. W.T. Garrett in 1907. He was a graduate of Yale University. He taught school in Cedartown and Griffin. Now in 1926, we find Della and her sister Elizabeth, both widowed at that time, were operating the Harris Motor Company in Barnesville, Georgia. This was a Ford car and tractor dealer and also a gas distributorship. Maxwell Hunter Harris was the youngest boy. He was born in 1877. He made a career of the United States Army, retiring as major. He married a lady from Texas by the name of Lulu, L-U-L-U. They had two boys, William and Hunter. Both graduated from West Point. William retired as a Major General and Hunter a 4-star General of the United States Air Force. Now this is a very interesting true story. In 1915 at Fort Sam, Houston, a second lieutenant by the name of Ike Eisenhower was making his regular inspection rounds when Lula Harris, wife of Major Hunter Harris, called, "Ike, come over. I want you to meet someone." This young lady was Mamie Dowd, and the rest is history. This is a true story. If you read anything about Eisenhower, look in the index, and it'll say Hunter Harris, Major Harris, or Lula Harris, and it will refer to this. This was confirmed by General Eisenhower's son. I wrote him, and he sent me back a nice email, and he said, yes, it was true, and said the Harris name was well known in the Eisenhower family. James Coffey, he was called Jimmy by the family. He would be the educator in this family and the only one not to attend college. He was self-taught. He was taught at home and also in private schools in Cedartown. At age 16, he established his own private school. He was a principal of a private school in Marietta, Georgia, from 1885-1890. From 1890-1892, he became the first superintendent of Cedartown's newly formed public school system. At that time, we had no public schools. 2 years later, he accepted the position of superintendency of the Rome school system, where he served until 1916. Later, he was in charge of the Cave Spring School for the Deaf until his retirement. His daughter, Agnes Ellen Harris, Ph.D., was Dean of Women at the University of Alabama from 1927 to 1952. The scholarship is named in her honor, and she is well known in Alabama as the person who established the study of home economics in Alabama. Her brother graduated from the United States Naval Academy. Jimmy tutored Charles well enough that he passed the West Point entrance exam in 1883 with a higher score, beating applicants who had college degrees. He graduated from West Point in 1888, served in the Spanish-American War, decorated for bravery at the Battle of San Juan Hill. Charles married and Mary Guthrie from Kentucky. She was also from a distinguished military family. Charles was an infantry officer, but was assigned to the Adjutant General's office in 1912 because of his efficiency in handling reports. He was made the Adjutant General of the U.S. Army, in which he served 1918 till he retired in 1922. They had 3 sons, with only one living to the age of 21. This was Captain Charles D. Harris, West Point graduate, and at the time of his commission, he was the youngest captain in the Army. Now, I'd like to go into more details toward the end and show you some pictures and also a special ceremony in France in 1983 honoring Captain Charles D. Harris. And this relates to what you said, 21-year-old. Now, a few words about Senator Harris. Jimmy taught William J. Harris until he was ready to attend the junior class at the University of Georgia. Williams started an insurance carrier to U.S. Senator Clay in Washington, D.C. William was a strong supporter of President Wilson when he ran for office. After the election, Williams was rewarded for his support by being appointed Director of the Census, Chairman of the FTC. In 1919, William was elected U.S. Senator of Georgia. William died in 1932, Washington, D.C. Attending his funeral at the Capitol was President Harding, members of the Senate, members of the House of Representatives, and the Supreme Court. A special train brought his body back to Cedartown, where the final ceremony was conducted at the Big Spring. This was at the request of William. He stated that Big Spring was his favorite place to play as a youngster. Among his friends and fellow senators, William was known to have loved music as mother and father. He neither chewed, smoked, nor drank. He attended church every Sunday at the Presbyterian Church in Washington. He was a good friend of the famous baseball player Ty Cobb, known as the Georgia Peach. In the Senate, he was affectionately known is Baldy. Where's Jewel? Now Jewel is first cousin. Isn't that right?
Father's first cousin.
Okay, he is direct descendant of these people, and that's why you see some pictures, you'll notice they all look just alike. Okay, this was interesting. William made a resolution authorizing the government to undertake extensive research in the cause and cure of cancer, which failed. And this is another direct quote. Millions are spent on hog diseases, why not a few on people? I think that his brother, Seals Harris, probably encouraged him to do this, because Dr. Harris was a great writer, and he wrote everybody, particularly promoting public health. That's just my assumption. William married in 1905 to Julia Knox Hull Wheeler, the daughter of General Joe Wheeler of Civil War fame. This marriage took place at the St. Thomas Church on 5th Avenue in New York City. This is a very famous Gothic-style church. Seals Harris was the best man. The other two brothers, Charles and Hunter, were serving in the Army in the Philippine Islands. Attending the wedding was General Joe Wheeler, Captain Wheeler, General Wheeler's son, and other family members. One of the most outstanding guests to me was Helen Gould, G-O-U-L-D, the daughter of Jay Gould. At that time was probably one of the most wealthy men in the United States. They were very good friends of the Wheelers and Harrisons. Now here's something that I didn't know until I did this work. William and Julia had two children who died in infancy, and they are buried at the Wheeler Family Cemetery at Wheeler Pond in Alabama. The first child was born in 1907 and died at birth. The third child was a boy born 1913 and died at birth and buried at the Wheeler Plantation. Mrs. Wheeler and her daughter Julia, Julia was born 1909, that's 1979. They both lived in Washington, D.C. Mrs. Wheeler died in 1959. Mother and daughter are both buried in Greenwood Cemetery. Andrew Seals Harris. He's always listed as Seals Harris. This is my favorite of all. He left a big paper trail. Not only a great doctor, he was a great writer. And some of these books are in the back. He was born in Cedartown in 1870, died in 1957. At age 19, Seals Harris was working for a surveying crew in South Carolina. Brother Jimmy decided that Seals should be a doctor, so Jimmy, Charles, and Julius loaned Seals the money to attend the University of Georgia. After graduating from the University of Georgia, he attended medical school at the University of Virginia, where he received his medical degree. After receiving his medical degree, he enrolled in Johns Hopkins for further medical studies. Later, Seals borrowed again from his brothers to study in Germany and Austria, where he and his wife spent 1 year. Dr. Harris stated that all of these family loans were repaid. Seals married Miss Stella Renner from Alabama in 1897. They had two children. Seals Jr. was a medical doctor. He died in Australia while serving with the U.S. Army Medical Corps in World War II. One daughter, Ann, married Mr. John Keegan of Birmingham, Alabama. Harris practiced in medicine in Alabama most of the time around Birmingham. He founded the famous Harris Clinic, which later became the Baptist Montclair Hospital. He served as medical researcher for the University of Alabama, was owner and publisher of the Southern Medical Journal. When Dr. Banting discovered insulin in 1921 and 22, Dr. Harris immediately went to Canada and worked with Banting and Best to learn all that he could about this new miracle drug, insulin. During this time, he and Banting became very good friends. Harris would later write the story of Banting's discovery in a book titled Banting's Miracle, published in the 1940s. Now, Ann stole some of my thunder, so I have to read it. I already had it typed up. A special interest is our own very Ernie Willis, who remembers when Harris would visit his sister, Della Garrett, on Herbert Street. Harris, would work on this book. Ernie has an autographed copy given to his wife by Dr. Harris. Seals wrote another book about James Marion Sims, M.D., known as the father of gynecology. This book was adapted as a radio play aired on the Cavalcade of America in the 1950s. The title was Sir Galahad in Manhattan, starring the well-known actor Ray Milland as Dr. Sims and Helen Clare as the